The subject line didn't raise flags. Phoenix rollout contingency. Internal only. Looked like the usual noise in a week full of late-stage migration prep. I opened it without thinking, reflex more than curiosity, and then I saw my name. If we phase Selva out post-Phoenix, we can move the roll offshore for 60% less. Keep it quiet until after the cutover. She doesn't push back. I blinked, read it again, scrolled down. It wasn't just Brennan. There were replies from 2 other directors. One suggested a temp transition plan to mask the swap. Another asked if HR was looped in yet. Brennan responded, "Not yet. Timing matters. Let's get through the migration first." I stared at the screen for a long time. My pulse didn't spike. There was no flare of anger, just a cold, steady quiet. I closed the email, moved it to an encrypted archive I kept for things like this, and marked it unread. I didn't say anything. At 2:08 p.m., Brennan messaged me, "Can you swing by my office 5 mins? Phoenix weekend prep." His door was already open when I got there. He motioned to the chair, all smiles. "Selva, thanks. You've been incredible getting us here. But as you know, the real work's this weekend." He launched into a polished monologue about team alignment, shared sacrifice, and commitment during crunch periods. Then came the ask. He wanted me to work the entire weekend without overtime. 30 hours, unpaid. I let him finish. Then I said no. He blinked as if I'd misheard. No as in, no, I won't donate 3 days of unpaid labor to stabilize the Western grid. That's not leadership. That's theft in a suit. His face stayed composed, but his eyes gave him a tiny flicker, a recalibration. Not disappointment, strategy. He'd already made the call. That's when I remembered he'd never once asked about the perimeter protocol, never sat through the walkthrough, never opened the disaster manual past page 20, which meant he had no idea what would happen next, and no one else in the building did either. The meeting invite came at 9:46 a.m. Friday. HR follow-up, conference room C. I didn't need to open the calendar to know what it meant. I closed my laptop, gently stood, and walked across the floor like I was heading to refill my coffee. No goodbyes, no scene. Brennan was already seated when I arrived, flanked by Leah from HR, who avoided eye contact. A single folder rested between them, neatly closed. He didn't smile this time. Selva Leah began her tone flat, but practiced TerraVolt is moving in a new direction as we transition through Phoenix. Unfortunately, that means letting go of some roles that, while valuable, no longer align with our long-term structure. She slid the folder toward me. Termination paperwork, immediate, standard phrasing. "This decision is final," she added softly, like she was doing me a favor by making it sound impersonal. I didn't bother responding. I read it once, signed where needed, and looked up. "I'll gather my things." Leah nodded. "Security will accompany you to your desk." I returned to my workstation with a silent escort 10 feet behind me. I didn't speak to anyone, didn't touch my monitor. Just pulled 3 things from my drawer: a photo of my grandmother wiring circuit boards in Havana, a lined field notebook filled with handwritten system sketches, and the small cactus I kept by my window for 3 years without missing a watering. Last, I slipped the company laptop into its sleeve. The screen was still asleep, but I knew the daemon was running beneath it. Perimeter, daemon.sh. A silent process looping every 6 hours, checking for credential pings, recording heartbeat signals. If none were detected within 24 hours, it would trigger certificate invalidation across the domain. No alarms, no pop-ups, just quiet execution. They hadn't asked me to return the device. No one thought to mention it. Brennan was already back in his office, likely setting up access for whatever offshore replacement they'd fast-tracked. I walked past the lobby and out into the light. They thought they'd removed a liability. What they'd actually done was remove the system's last living password. The near breach happened 2 years ago. A back-end authentication module left open during a third-party audit. It wasn't exploited, but it could have been, and that was enough. After that, I was given a mandate: rebuild everything. No restrictions, no approvals required, just make sure it never happens again. So, I did. I started with the fundamentals. Auto-expiring certificates every 24 hours, a new handshake protocol that required real-time validation from the lead administrator me. Not just a password or a token, but a live encrypted signature generated from my company-issued laptop, routed through a dynamic key sequence tied to my hardware ID. No signal, no renewal. Then came the contingency layer perimeter protocol. If my credentials failed to ping the system within 24 hours, the network would interpret that as a potential compromise. My death, a kidnapping, a breach. In response, it would begin. Lockdown procedures, invalidate all server keys, freeze new logins, and sever external access. Recovery required one thing: a manual regeneration of root certificates from the original authorized device, my laptop. The only one capable of issuing a clean restart. The process couldn't be faked, and it couldn't be skipped. I documented everything, wrote the disaster protocol myself. It lived in the Internal Continuity Manual, Chapter 7, Section C, starting on page 181. I submitted it twice for executive review. Brennan signed off on it without comment. I doubt he made it past the table of contents. By Friday evening, 12 hours after my last login, the daemon ran its first silent query. No response, no authentication, no fallback delegate. Auth ping 1. Failed. Retrying in 12 hours. I didn't receive a notification. I didn't need to. The system was doing exactly what it was built to do. Respond to absence, like it was an attack vector. If no signal came by 9:00 a.m. Sunday, the network would assume the worst, and it would begin sealing every door behind me. I left the city before sunrise on Saturday, before the first support ticket of the day could be filed, before the calls would start rolling in to the engineers, now stuck holding a system they didn't understand. I drove with the windows down and no GPS. No one knew where I was going, not even me. I found a bluff a few miles past Superior, a place I'd visited once during a storm-chasing trip. It was quiet, remote, no signal, no interference. The company laptop stayed shut, tucked in the side pouch of my gear bag. I didn't need to open it. The protocol daemon ran independently on its own schedule. Right on time at 9:00 a.m., it tried to send its handshake. There was no network to reach. Auth ping 1, primary admin credentials not detected, retrying in 12 hours. The log updated silently, no blinking lights, no alert banners, just one line in a rotating SICE log, waiting for someone who wouldn't be checking. I spent the afternoon walking the ridgeline, letting the sun cut across the canyon walls, while I took photos, light shadow, nothing digital in between. The world was still functioning, but the network wasn't. By 9:00 p.m., the second authentication window came and went. The daemon queried the system again. Still no response. This time, the script advanced. Auth ping 2. Failed. Lockdown protocol initiating. 0-hour delay. In less than 12 hours, Teravolt's infrastructure would begin its automated lockdown. Keys would expire. Sessions would time out. No one inside the system would understand why it was happening because no one had ever planned for the architect to vanish. Sunday morning, I watched the sunrise from a granite ledge while drinking black coffee from a steel mug. The laptop stayed asleep in my bag, unaware and unbothered. At 9:00 a.m., sharp, it would complete the only task it had left, and I'd be home before the first server light turned red. I got home late Saturday night, rinsed the dust from my hair, set the laptop on the dining table, and went to sleep without plugging it in. It didn't matter. The script had done its work. By Sunday morning, I was up before the system was scheduled to lock. I brewed coffee and opened my personal laptop, logging into one of the public network diagnostic dashboards I used during client audits. Teravolt's domains were still showing green. At 8:59 a.m., the infrastructure looked flawless. Every endpoint pinged back a healthy response. External services were live. VPN tunnels were stable. Then 9:00 a.m. arrived. The first service to fall was the solar grid monitoring API. Its endpoint failed authentication and dropped into a restart loop. Next was the westbound VPN server. Then the internal credential broker. One by one, the entire ecosystem dimmed like streetlights losing power in sequence. Portals dropped. Clients froze. Dashboards blinked out of existence. Gridview.teravolt.net. Timeout vpnauth.teravolt.net. Cert invalid dashboard client.us west. Error 403 public teravolt.ios unreachable. Every signed certificate had expired. Every session key revoked. No new authentication tokens issued. The system wasn't crashing. It was sealing itself. From the outside, it might have looked like an attack. But there were no hostile IPs, no malware traffic, no breach signatures. Just a slow, methodical disconnection, a fortress quietly drawing up its bridge and locking every gate. I sipped my coffee and watched as the last of the green nodes flipped to red. They would scramble now, trying to restart services, reissue certs, roll back images. But the chain of trust was broken. And the only way back was through the manual key sequence on a device no longer recognized, held by someone no longer on payroll. They hadn't fired a technician. They had erased the anchor that kept everything tethered. And sometime soon, Brennan would realize it wasn't a system failure. It was a system response. The call came at 9:17 a.m., just as I was finishing my second cup of coffee. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. I knew who it would be. "Selva, what the hell did you do?" Brennan's voice was sharp, rushed, brittle. He sounded like someone trying to control a house fire with a glass of water. "I didn't do anything I said. The system's just following protocol. Everything is down. Our grid clients can't log in. The portals are offline. The VPN's refusing credentials. This is you." "No," I said calmly. "This is the system doing its job. You removed the primary administrator without a credential handoff. It interpreted that as a catastrophic event. You're saying this was automatic. I'm saying it was documented." He didn't respond. I could hear background noise, keyboards, panicked voices, maybe someone swearing. He lowered his voice. "Where's this documentation disaster recovery manual? Chapter 7, Section C. Starts on page 181. I've never seen that. You signed off on it last year." There was silence, longer this time. "What do we do?" "You'd need to manually regenerate root credentials from the original issuing device," I said. "And since that's my laptop, which you didn't ask me to return and I'm no longer authorized to access your systems, you're really going to stand by while the company collapses." His voice cracked. "You're the one who made the decision, Brennan, not me. Selva, please, I suggest you read the manual," I said. "Then find someone who actually knows what's in it." I hung up. No anger, no satisfaction, just quiet. The screen on my laptop showed a clean system snapshot, a field of red nodes blinking steadily across the west. The next call wouldn't come from Brennan. He'd already lost the room. It would come from someone who still understood the value of listening. The second call came just before 10:00 a.m. This time, the number was direct. Corinne Vale, Terravolt's CEO. Her voice was low and deliberate. "Selva, I assume you're aware of what's happening." "I am. Is it true this was some sort of automatic response?" "It's the perimeter protocol," I said. "It initiates lockdown if the lead administrator fails to authenticate within 24 hours. The system interprets that as a possible breach and locks out every access point. It's documented. And it functioned exactly as designed." She exhaled sharp but not panicked. "So there's no outside attack, no. This was internal, predictable, preventable. What's the recovery process?" "The root certificate chain has to be regenerated manually," I said, "from my device. The only one authorized to initiate clean restore sequences." A pause. Short. Focused. "Can you do it?" "Yes," I said, "but not as your employee. You revoked that. Another pause. Longer this time. What do you want? My consulting fee is $65,000, I said. Flat. Fine. There's more. I'm listening. A formal written apology issued to the Phoenix project engineers, especially the 2 back-end devs you laid off last quarter. Done. Full overtime protections reinstated and enforced moving forward. Agreed. The perimeter protocol must be reinstated into the executive onboarding program. No more buried manuals. Understood. And an independent audit of IT department management practices. There was silence again. Then, we'll start it Monday. Anything else? No. How quickly can you get here? I'll be there in an hour. She didn't offer thanks. I didn't need one. The call ended without small talk. I stood unplugged the laptop from its charger and zipped it into my backpack. The drive downtown was quiet, my hands steady. They hadn't expected me to return, but this time I wasn't coming back for them. I was coming back for the system I built. When I arrived, the lobby lights were dimmed and the receptionist's desk was empty. The building felt suspended, like time had paused just after everything shut down and no one knew how to restart it. I didn't check in. Security met me at the elevator with a clipboard and a badge labeled Visitor, Consultant. No one said a word. As the elevator doors slid open on the 3rd floor, Brennan was already in the hallway, flanked by 2 guards, his face flushed and silent. He didn't look at me. I didn't slow down. One of the guards held the door open. That was the extent of our acknowledgement. The IT floor was quiet in a way I'd never experienced before. No clacking keyboards, no whiteboard chatter, no movement, just blank monitors and silence. I walked straight to the server room and keyed in the code, which hadn't been changed. The air inside was cold, dry humming. The racks blinked, red across the board. Status indicators down. Traffic null. Systems alive but isolated waiting. I placed my laptop on the console, connected the tethered cable, and entered the root command. The shell opened. The daemon recognized the device. The system finally had a verified administrator. One by one, services began to return. The VPN tunnels re-established. The client authentication services rolled back to live status. The solar grid dashboards began syncing with remote systems. Certificates regenerated. Tokens refreshed. Lights turned green. By the time I logged the final handshake, the floor behind me was stirring. Chairs scraping. Keyboards waking. Life. Corinne found me at the console. Her arms were folded, expression level. "We'd like to offer you the Chief Information Security Officer role," she said. I didn't hesitate. "No, thank you." She tilted her head, but I kept my voice steady. "I prefer to build systems that won't need to be saved from their own bosses." She nodded once. Nothing more. I packed the laptop, zipped the bag, and walked out the same door I'd left through 2 days earlier, only this time it was mine to choose. And I already knew what I was building next. I filed the paperwork 3 weeks after I walked out of TerraVolt for the last time. The name came to me while I was repotting my cactus fire trail security. A quiet nod to burn lines and containment zones. The kind you build before a blaze, not during one. I didn't post job listings. I didn't have to. 2 engineers from the Phoenix migration team reached out before I even powered up a fresh terminal. They were back-end specialists, smart and underutilized, the kind of people who had quietly held the company together, while managers like Brennan cut corners and wrote summaries of summaries. They'd seen how I worked. They knew the value of being heard. We rented a modest space above an old bookstore on Grand Avenue. Bare walls, recycled desks, no gloss. Just uptime, trust, and clarity. We didn't pitch magic. We built clean, documented systems, then trained our clients to run them without us. If they didn't want to learn, we didn't take the contract. 6 months in Firetrail had 9 clients, 7 regional, 2 national, and TerraVolt was our biggest. Corinne came back with a quiet request and a formal contract. This time, the terms were mine. We rebuilt their infrastructure from the foundation up. Every system had at least 2 ways in and 3 ways out. Every administrator had a shadow. Every lock had a documented key. What we built wasn't invincible, but it was resilient. It was honest. The cactus from my old desk now lives in the corner of my new office, soaking up sun through the south-facing window. It's taller, fuller, no longer leaning. It grew the same way Fire Trail did, slow, quiet, deliberate. What failed at TerraVolt was never the code. It was the people pretending they understood what they never took the time to learn. It was ego dressed up as leadership. That won't happen again, not here, not under my watch. And the next thing I build won't need defending. It will speak for itself. It's just past 6 when the drone stabilizes over the canyon. I watch it slow arc through the air on my tablet screen, adjusting the frame by a few degrees to capture the full edge of morning light as it breaks across the rock face. The timing has to be perfect. There's no second chance for a shot like this. But I've always been comfortable in that space between precision and silence. The drone clicks once, the shutter closes, light captured. I sit on the edge of the bluff and take a long breath. It's the same desert I escaped to that weekend, but everything is different now. This time, I came here not to disconnect, but to witness something coming full circle. The final image appears on the screen, layered cliff faces glowing orange, the shadow of the drone, slicing across the ridgeline like a signature. He thought locking me out ended my access, but I wasn't inside his walls. I built the gate. Brennan, last I heard, was at a 2-year-old startup in Seattle leading people transformation initiatives, still stringing together the same buzzwords he used at TerraVolt, still believing access was something you could deny with a form letter and a deactivated badge. Corinne now signs every security protocol personally, not because she doesn't trust her team, but because she finally understands what it means to hold responsibility. The new perimeter protocol is cleaner, better, triple authenticated with fallback delegation and internal succession logic. It's no longer just mine. It belongs to the system. I reviewed it last night before leaving. Page 181 now begins with a single sentence. This document must be understood, not just accepted. That was never about me. It was about the culture that made people like me invisible until the day they realized we were the infrastructure holding it all together. I don't chase power. I design systems where no one has to, where silence isn't a warning. It's a promise kept. The wind rises just as the drone completes its return loop. I bring it in, gently folding the wings and packing it into the case. What happens when you stop begging for the key and start designing the lock?